Hi guys, it's Charlie from Monocure 3D. Today on Protips we're going to have a look at this popular MSLA printer from Creality. It's their latest model, the LD-002R. Let's check it out now. Let's have a look at what's in the box, shall we? Standard pack, we'll have a look at that in a minute. A power cord, the release film or the FET film. The printer's well packed in there in some bubble wrap. Again, a bit more foam packed around there, which is always good to see. So yeah, wrapped in bubble wrap, which is just gives it a little bit of extra protection. Oh, that's interesting. It's got another bit of foam insert, full foam insert on the inside of the lid. It's always good to see extra protection, especially when it's coming from overseas. Nice looking lid. Again, no handle, unfortunately. Printer handle, a printer knob like I have, or as I said in the past, go to the hardware store and grab yourself one. Much better than making a mess of this nice looking lid, which will happen very quickly unless you just have a little handle on the top there. It's a solid feeling printer. Looks like anodized aluminium with some CNC, nice CNC work on the side here for some air, and also on this side and on the back. So a lot of good airflow through there. Let's take this bit of foam off so we can have a proper look at that felt a bit heavy. I was about to throw it down on the floor, but I just noticed it was a little bit heavier than it should have been, and the reason is the build plate is in here. First impressions of the build plate, it's simple, I like it, it has the tapering. Some of the lower cost printers don't have this tapering on the build plate. I think that's a mistake. The tapering really helps with the resin dripping off after it's printed, and rather than it dripping all over the printer or all over your bench. So that's good. It's got the 4 screws here. We'll go through the leveling process later. Basic build plate, but again, no anodizing on the bottom, a nice aluminium surface, perfect for adhesion for the resins to stick. So you shouldn't have any problem with that there. Power button on the front, I really like that. I think that's a good feature, and another feature that I like is the USB. I do prefer them on the front, but on the side, at least it's at the front on the side and not at the back on the side, which some of them have. But on the front, I do believe it's a bit easier, to be honest. All right, so in the pack, we'll have a quick look at the pack. We've got a brush there, come in handy for cleaning the prints in the resin away, some tools, the scraper, which we see, a plastic scraper, you know how much I like them, so great for in the vat. This is only good for removing the print off the build plate. Some gloves, some filters for pouring the resin back into the bottles, they always come in handy, and masks. The user manual looks quite nice. Looks like we've got a mixture of English and Chinese. But it's a well laid out manual with good pictures and easy to follow instructions. Just the USB stick, which is always good to have, and a quality certificate from Creality. On the USB stick, I had someone message me the other day saying that they couldn't find a USB stick for their Anycubic photon printer, and I questioned why they couldn't find one, and he said because he went to the Anycubic website and they didn't have them for sale. The USB sticks that come with these printers, they're nothing special, they're nothing formatted to the printer, they're just a run standard normal USB stick that you can get from anywhere, the corner store, service station, just a normal USB stick. Should work straight from, plug it in, doesn't need any special formatting, it should just work. And look, to be honest with you guys, it's always not a bad idea to replace these with a slightly better quality one. The ones they do ship with these Chinese printers, I have to say, are usually not the best, and they might last a little while. There's nothing worse than the print stopping halfway through because the USB's failed. All right, so let's get this thing powered up now. Some of these come with power adapters. This one doesn't have a power adapter, it's a kettle cable straight into the back, which means that the power adapter is actually inbuilt into the machine. And to be honest, it's a sign of, in my mind, slightly better quality. And it's got the plate here with all the information that you need, again in English and in Chinese, which is quite handy to have, and all the certification. Now, Creality is a big company. They're well known for their FDM printers. They have brought out a model before this in the resin printing. It wasn't great. It didn't get really good reviews. I haven't used it myself, but they have fixed a lot of the issues with this printer. It has a 4.3 out of 5-star rating on Amazon USA. I had one of these at home. I quite liked it. It's not super fast. It's not a frozen Sonic. You can see good solid Z axes here. The lead screw isn't attached to the top here. You know, I prefer if they are. I think that it doesn't actually make a lot of difference, to be honest, especially when you've got such a solid, robust Z-axis here on this rail. It's not going to move. That's the most important thing, is it going to move? And with this setup here, it's not going to wobble at all. It did ship with an Australian plug, which is always good to see. Okay, so I plugged it in. Let's press the on button and watch it power up. That beep obviously means that it's on and working. We've got the 3 menus here: Tool, System and Print. If we go to Tool first, it's there. We have we'll go to that one first, which is the Z-axis. Now, because they've packed it with this in the down position, I want to lift this up. So I'm going to select the 10mm lift. All right, so it actually goes white when you've selected it. You'd think it would be blue, but no, it's white when it's selected. So it's on 10mm there, so that means it's going to go up by 10mm at a time. I wish they'd just put a take me to the top button. Pressing 10mm at a time is pretty boring. So if anyone's developing a printer like this, maybe it's a good idea to include a button to take you back up to the top. Let's just have a quick look at the vat. I quite like this. This is an interesting way to do it. Most vats don't have these inbuilt, the screws to hold it in place. Usually they're part of the printer and then you slide the vat on, but this is just part of the vat, which, you know, they're not fall out, which is good. That's quite a good idea. It's got the steps. If you have a look here, there you can see the steps to show you how much resin you've got in there, which is always quite handy. But a standard vat with a standard setup to remove the FEP sheet, either our 100 or 200 micron FEP sheets would work in that, no problem. Just talking now, we've got the vat out of the way, we can have a look at this. So it looks like we've got a little fan here. I'd say that would be a little extraction fan for the fumes with a filter on it. We've got the sensor for the Z axis. So this comes down here and goes into this optical sensor, and that tells it where its home is. They've also included some protective plastic over the top of the screen, the LCD screen, and a couple of stickers here change the screen while the power is off. That's pretty obvious, but I guess they felt they needed to include it. And it says, please keep the screen clean. Okay, well, again, thanks for the information, but I don't know if it needed to be a huge, big yellow sticker. I personally would probably be removing them. So back to the menu, that's the home button. So that would take it back down to the bottom. We don't want to do that at the moment. Now that just needs loosening there and sliding in. That's pretty straightforward. We look for our tool to undo these. So while we're here, I'm just thinking maybe it's best to level this build plate. It's very, very quick procedure. You've seen me do this with a lot of the other printers. It's a straightforward, undo the 4 here, make sure it's nice and loose. Okay, we're gonna come down here, we're gonna hit the home button. Now, because this has the optical sensor, it's actually using the optical sensor to find home. And what this is doing is when this goes and finds home at the bottom position and we tighten it up, then we know that the build plate is nice and flat on the bottom of the vat, and that when we go to print our first print, it's going to print. So that's saying it's found home. So now I just make sure that's nice and flat, and I get my tool while still holding it, and I just do these up. Tight enough that it's not going to move, but not over tight that it's going to cause any issues. You can't undo them. Oh, it's interesting, it keeps beeping at us. I don't know why, but all right, so we'll take it back up now. The manual might say to use a piece of paper to level. I'm not a believer in the piece of paper method. I believe you should use the vat to level. Make sure that the vat's in place and screwed down nice and tight, and then level. And the reason being, as I've said a few times before, but I'll say it again just in case you haven't seen any other videos, bits of paper are different thicknesses. The FEP film in this vat is actually what you're going to be using. So of course, in my mind, it should be the FEP film that you use to level. Let's look at the rest of the menu now. We've got the calibrate, the Z0, and which will tell us that the Z0 is detected by the trigger position. I don't understand why they've got that there, but again, maybe it's because at some point they thought they might have a manual way of doing the zero, and they changed the design, but they left that in the menu for some reason, but it's not necessary. Stop is obviously stop if your motor is driving into the LCD or it's going too far up the top. You can quickly stop it, which is quite good. Clean VAT. This is an interesting one. Not all printers have this, and I know some of them include it. Don't get excited thinking that all of a sudden someone's going to jump out from under the desk and clean the VAT. All it means is that if you've got a bit of resin in the vat, you can press that button, and what it'll do, we'll see if we can get it to do it. And it says, okay, for 60 seconds we want it to clean it, and we hit next. All it does is it just literally puts the light on full frame for 60 seconds or however long you want. What that would do is obviously cure the resin as a slab. It doesn't really clean the vat, it just cures the resin that you could then pull out. I would say don't use that. I'd try and save as much resin as you can by using one of these paper filters and putting it back into the bottle, the unused resin. I think using this system and curing it is a little bit of a waste of resin. If it was really old and you just wanted to get rid of it, maybe you'd use it. I wouldn't ever see a reason for using it. I've had this on printers in the past and I've never used it. So we go back there, so now we're on the system settings. These are the standard, so if you don't like that beeping, you can press that and that will turn the sound off. We might do that for this service. It'll tell you to go to the website and the emails and things, and language, you can change the language, English to Chinese. Back. So print menu, of course we haven't got the USB inserted, which we can do that now. Get something up on that print menu. Even though I plugged it in and it was still on, the files came up. It doesn't look like there are any test files in there. So what we'll need to do is jump on the computer. We're going to use Chitubox, so it doesn't have its own software. A lot of you are familiar with Chitubox. It's a good program, it works well, and this printer is in their list of printer in the settings, so you don't need to get it from the USB or anything, it's actually already there. Okay, so I've opened up Chitubox. You've all seen how to load a model in this, I don't have to show you that. Here's the model of our new swatch that we're printing, so you can come into our shop in Sydney and see the different materials that we have. We're doing these for filaments and for all our resins. Today we're going to be printing in our tough resin. To set up the printer, I've already got it on the list here, but it's very easy. You just go to add a new printer, you look for the machine, there's Creality, you press the little down arrow, there's the printer there, you select it, you hit OK, and it loads it. It even shows you a photo of it. There it is there, great. I'll cancel it because I've already got it. You've got the tabs on here, this is all preset, you don't need to touch it. It's all the build volume, the resolution, it's all in there. Resin, you can add what resin type you're using, the density and how much it costs. Print, well, this is what the business end, so we're looking at a layer height. You know I like to print in 0.05, so I'll stick with that. The bottom layer count 4. Normal exposure time is 7 seconds. We'll leave it at that for now. The bottom exposure 30. I'm going to put that up to 45. I'll make sure it's 6. I'm sure it'd be fine at 30, but 45 just for peace of mind. 8.5 light off delay, that was where it was, so we'll leave it there. The bottom light off delay is 6.5. Bottom lift distance 5, lifting distance 6. Could go to 5, let's leave it at 6. And these are all standard 90, 80, 150. No need to mess with that. I'm sure they will all be fine. So next thing we need to do is we need to save that. So that automatically saves those settings, but now we need to slice it and then save it to the USB. So it's a thin model, it was very quick to slice, that was real time, there was no speeding up there. Have a quick check on the right hand side here to make sure that it's doing everything it should be doing. That all looks good, happy with that. Down here you can have a quick look at the exposure times. You can change everything here before you save it, except the layer height. Let's save it, and let's save it straight to the USB. So I've got the USB stick in the side here, and just hit save. Obviously be a slightly different menu setup if you're on a PC. I'm obviously on a Mac, but it's pretty much the same. Okay, so that's it, it's saved. At this point here, you can pull out the USB and we'll go and put it in the printer and see how we get on. Time to put this through its paces and get it printing with the Monocure resin. We're going to use a tough resin today. I'll put the USB stick in, let's go grab the resin. A new tough clear, so we give that a good shake. Some of you guys may not know that we also sell these gloves from Montana, MTN. They're very good black nitrile gloves. We sell them in boxes of 100 just like this. Also, I'm just going to grab the CMY 2K pigment set because this tuff that I'm using here is a clear. Today let's make it green. Before we do that, I better put the gloves on. Magic. So we undo the bottle of resin and we peel off the induction seal. And we're going to come over here and put it into our cup. It's about 100 grams. Obviously, you can give these a shake if you want. It's usually not necessary because they're pretty well stable and don't do much separating. Today, let's do 3 drops of blue, make a green, and I'd say 3 drops of the yellow. We'll see what we get. So that's going to be a pretty even green. If you want it to be a bit of a darker green, you could have used a bit more blue. So that's obviously going to give you a pretty transparent green, which is what I'm after today. When you're printing in a new printer, I always recommend that you use transparent colours as they are easier to dial in. And then once you've got them sorted, you can move on to the solid colours with the white or the grey. With the white pigment does sometimes makes it a little bit harder to dial in and a lot less messing around using these transparent colours. And you can use clear. I like to add a little bit of colour to it, just makes it easier to see the detail and work out if I need to increase or decrease the time or what's going on with it. So rather than trying to lift this build plate up and mess around, I'm just going to take the build plate off and just tip the resin straight into this vat. Beautiful transparent green, look at that. And we can just slot the build plate back on. We'll come back to our menu here and we can see the swatch that we put on the build plate earlier, and we're going to press that and then it's as easy as hitting that big play button. Make sure they're nice and tight, down goes into the resin. So let's come back in 34 minutes and see how we go. So this printer has a large print volume. Build volume is 120 by 65 by 165 millimeters. It enables you to finish bigger and larger prints at a time. The layer height is 20 to 50 microns. Resolution, it's a 2K screen, 2560 by 1600 pixels. XY axis positioning is 0.075 millimeters. The printing speed is 50 to 70 millimeters. The bed leveling is manual. The display is a 3.5 inch touchscreen and it uses any 405 nanometer UV resin, including ours of course. Connectivity is obviously USB. Dimensions are 221 by 221 by 403 and it weighs 7 kilos. 38 minutes later, here we are. Let's have a look and see how we went. Now it looks like there is certainly something on there, just without trying to drip it everywhere. From what I can tell, obviously it's still covered in resin. It needs a good clean, so I'll go and do that now and we'll come back and have a look at it. But it's certainly printed. There's no lifting from the build plate. You can see it's stuck. We didn't need to use any plate bond. Obviously haven't had any adhesion issues. I can see something slightly in the middle here. That looks like to do with the suction in the FEP. That can happen with big, large, flat prints. That's why it is sometimes better to angle models. But we'll have a look at that when we've cleaned it up and we'll be able to tell a bit more. Okay, so I've just got back from cleaning this and I'm very happy with it. It's got one issue that I did see before was this line in here. Now, that can be caused by a number of factors. Sometimes it can be due to the suction effect onto the FEP sheet, and sometimes when the FEPs aren't robust enough and you are printing flat like this on the build plate, you can get that sort of dent, and it actually is due to the model being pulled back up off the FEP sheet. It can be also slight overcuring. Maybe we need to back off the layer times by 1 or 2 seconds. That would certainly help. Unfortunately now this FEP sheet, I can actually see here, there actually is a little bit of a dent in it now from that. It's actually stretched the FEP film itself in that area. And it's very hard to fix. I'm probably going to have to replace that, which is a little bit frustrating. But, to be honest, I'd be happier with a 200 micron FEP on this printer anyway, especially if I'm going to be printing things like this. So I'll change it for one of our 200 micron FEPs and hopefully that will fix the issue, and I will back off the layers a little bit, maybe by 1.5 to 2 seconds, because it looks okay. All in all, I'm happy with that. As I say, there's a few adjustments that are needed. The printer itself, Creality is a brand name, huge in the FDM market. They are getting into this space, into the resin printing space, which is great to see. Let's hope they bring out a larger format one soon. I'm sure they will make more developments as time goes on. They've certainly got As I say, a big following. There's a lot of people out there who like their printers and follow their printers. This is a well-made machine. There's not a lot of here I can fault about it. Again, for the price, I guess you call them a budget MSLA printer, well under $1,000. It's a robust printer that should last you a decent amount of time anyway. This one will probably end up down in the lab. We'll see how it gets on down there. Guys, remember all our settings are on the website. The tough resin, the model resin, and the dental resin for this printer are there. Also, I'll put a coupon code in the description below so you can get a discount from our resin and our other products. Subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, remember to keep on 3D printing.